All right, this hearing is being recorded. We're here today on FDN 2536. This is a quasi-judicial hearing pursuant to 27-61J of the Tampa Code. The petitioner in this matter is Emilio G. and Blanche W. Librero. This concerns property at 150 East Davis Boulevard. Could we have appearances on behalf of the city?
Yes, hearing officer, my name is Kamaria Pettis-Knuckle from the legal department.
Eric Cotton, City of Tampa Development Coordination Manager.
Laura Marley, Development Coordination Zoning Coordinator.
James Geis. Development.
And the only witness from the zoning department who's going to testify, Mr. Strock, is going to be Mr. Cotton.
Understood. And appearances on behalf of the petitioner?
Good morning, Mr. Schroth. My name is Jane Graham. I'm the attorney for the petitioners, and so I'm attorney for Emilio and Blanche Librero, as well as 150 East Davis Island DM LLC, who are the property owner. With me today, I have Susan Swift, who is the AICP, who is a witness who will be testifying, as well as Brian Roney and Emilio and Blanche Librero. And Vanessa Edwards is here as well in attendance.
And in what capacity is Ms. Edwards here?
She is on behalf of the property owner.
So if everybody who intends to testify today, if you could please raise your right hand, and I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
I do. Yes.
All right, thank you. If we could start with the procedural history and presentation by staff regarding this matter.
Good morning. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. I'm just going to go over the PowerPoint that I have previously been submitted. Again, this is a petition for review for FDN 2536 for the property at 150 East Davis Boulevard. Again, the petitioners are Emilio and Blanche Librero. The property owner is 150 East Davis Island DM LLC. And again, the property address is 150 East Davis Boulevard. Just to summarize, the zoning is RM24 residential multifamily. The 24 gives you 24 units per acre if you were developing it as a residential development. The future land use is of Res 35, residential 35. The formal decision request when submitted was to determine if an office is a non-conforming use. On the first page of the, or the third page of the PowerPoint is a zoning map that shows the property and the surrounding zonings. On to the east, north, south, and west is RM24 zoning. Then there were two photographs on two separate slides of the existing structure as it sits from a Google Street View picture. And then the next page talks about the non-conforming status, the non-conforming code that is applicable in this case. And just to state, it talks about to be considered established as a non-conformity, the property owner or authorized agent must request a written determination for formal decision by the zoning administrator pursuant to section 2754. A non-conforming use must be in compliance with the zoning requirements which are lawful when it was established, which would be prohibited, regulated, or restricted by the enactment of this chapter, or subsequent amendments thereto. To establish a non-conformity, the applicants must demonstrate two things. The non-conforming must have been deemed non-conforming under the former zoning code and continue to be designated non-conforming under the provisions of this chapter or subsequent amendments hereto, or the non-conformity must have been deemed conforming under the former zoning code and made non-conforming and continue to be designated non-conforming by the provisions of this chapter subsequent amendments hereto. And then specifically, it's section 27297 of the code, which is non-conforming uses of major structures or structures or premises in combination. So the subject property on the next page, you'll see what used to be called the city situs system, reflected the use of the property under the SLUT code, which is the standard land use code, as trade services, other non-residential. On the next page after that, there's another property that's submitted as an example of what a SLUT code that actually calls it out as being a business professional office. This is 1 North Dale Mabry. This is an office tower at the corner of Dale Mabry and Kennedy, just to show that the slug code reflects what the use is at the time. And the next page after that is business tax receipts that were submitted by the applicant in their application that shows the property as the name Libero's School and Dance Club Incorporated. So the page after that, you'll see a survey of the property, which is entitled Libero's School and Dance. And then it fades out. It's hard to read after that. And the next page after that is the floor plan of the first floor. And the next page is the next page after that is the floor plan of the second floor, which shows the majority of the property being a dance studio, which is what the determination that we found of the property was. So when we reviewed the submitted documentation, it was determined that the use of the property was a dance studio, although the request was for the determination of an office, and there was some confusion, which I tried to specify and highlight on the last slide, which is we recognize the fact that the dance studio was there and there was an accessory office use, but the primary use of the property from the evidence submitted was and still is a dance studio, and there is an accessory office use attached to that dance studio. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Cotton. Is there any objection to the admissibility of each of those PowerPoint slides on behalf of the city into evidence?
No objection from the city.
No objection from my client.
What I'll do then is I'll mark each of those slides as its own exhibit on behalf of the city corresponding to the number presented in the PowerPoint. Are there any questions by the city attorney's office at this time?
Yes, special magistrate, hearing officer.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Mr. Cotton, can you go to, on your PowerPoint presentation, can you go to slide 6 in your explanation of code section 27-291 classification? Specifically, can you walk through with the hearing officer how you determine that the office request is not approved? Can you walk that through for the hearing officer?
Yes, ma'am. So when the application was submitted, the request was specifically requesting approval of FDN and office is a legal non-conforming use. So when staff starts reviewing a formal decision, review the evidence that's submitted to us, which was highlighted in the formal decision letter, which was the business tax receipts, the survey, and the floor plan as partial for the review. And the zoning was prior to the zoning currently on the property of RM24 was R4. R4 allowed for a multitude of uses, including a dance studio. At the time, that was an allowable use in the R4. So when the zoning conformance took place and the zoning went from R4 to RM24, the use was then deemed non-conforming, and it was continued to be non-conforming since that time frame, given the fact that the use has been retained on that property since zoning conformance, which was done in the late 80s. So the evidence pointed to a dance studio as being the permitted use on the site.
Thank you. And you testified that the office use was an accessory use based upon what?
Some of the evidence that was submitted, including the floor plan, shows some offices on the property, and under the code, accessory office is an allowable use as long as it's up to no more than 20% of the floor area of the property.
Now, would that have been an accessory use at the time the property was originally built? I believe it was in 1984, thank you. Was that an allowable accessory use in the R4 zoning classification?
Give me one moment. Yes, office for administrative, business, and professional uses was an allowed use. And I would say that I'm not an expert on Chapter 43. It was before my time at the city. But that, and it would be a customary use for an accessory office use for a business to have on that.
And based upon your review of the code, when you're making a decision, I mean, when you're doing an analysis for a formal decision, you as a zoning administrator can do your own research in regards to answering a question about a nonconformity, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And based upon your own review, as you've done with the CITUS program, were you able to determine that there was any sole use of an office for that property?
No, ma'am, there's no evidence that it was an office use.
Now, turning to the decision letters that were submitted as a part of the record, hearing officer, the city submitted two decision letters. Now, the one letter that the petitioner focuses on has, based upon the petition review, stated that there were some errors on the letter. I want us to be able to walk through those errors, those particular things. Now, one letter has the address located as 2505 West North B Street with a zoning classification of RM16. Is that correct?
No, ma'am, that's what the correction was for.
And you corrected that information in we'll say in a new letter.
Correct.
And in the new letter, does it have the address as, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, we'd like to object because we never received that.
I sent it in the documents.
In 1,000. What was it dated? Yeah, we never,
It's dated February 17, 2025.
and when was the first letter dated?
Same date.
Yeah, I never received the corrected one.
Okay,
Certainly, unless it was in a stack of other documents, I've never received another letter.
okay. Hearing officer, may I just? Oh,
Yeah,
you're,
do you have,
I believe it was done. We never
So we
received.
just had to object for the record that we have never seen it.
if we have a copy now, if you intend to present it as an exhibit, we can address that at this time, or if you need a few moments to gather it.
I sent it in the documents.
Yes, I saw it.
Friday.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
so, yeah, I don't know if there was, when it was sent originally.
Okay,
It would have been uploaded into a seller.
Oh, that's
So, yeah, it was
after the
uploaded.
fact. I
into a seller.
wouldn't have looked at it after the fact.
All right, your objection's noted. We'll proceed
Thank
with the questions. Thank you.
okay. So on the revised letter, does the correct address of 150 East Davis Boulevard with the RM24 zoning classification appear on the letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and does on either letters that were still the same date was February 17, 2025, is the approval and not approved still the same?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the language is the same.
If I may just have just one moment, here, Mr. Schroff.
Sure.
And just to clarify, the example referencing your PowerPoint that you gave on the CITUS details, the address for that property was so confused. 1 North Del Mabry Highway, and it showed in that CITUS program that the use was business professional, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that when the CITUS declared what the use was, that's what the information that was submitted when this property the structure was built, correct? And the use was approved.
The CITUS program came on board in like the mid-80s after the building was built. But the reference should have been referred to as an office. It was an office use.
And can you explain to the hearing officer related to 150 East Davis Boulevard, the CITUS program had this use as trade services, other non-residential. Do you have any explanation to the hearing officer as far as what that means?
No, I do not.
But certainly if the use was business professional, it would have indicated
Yes,
that on
I
that.
would have reflected business professional.
And how does this information from business professional trade services, how did that get inputted?
My understanding, this was shared information with the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's Office. So whatever they were being used for, and as they would determine their taxing capability, that's what would be involved in the select code.
And just to, all of the documents from the Hillsborough County tax receipt that was provided by the petitioner and the Hillsborough County business tax, there were no information or indication that this was an office, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The city has no further questions for the witness.
Thank you. Are there any questioners from Attorney Graham?
Yes, thank you, hearing officer. Mr. Cotton, question for you. Does the nonconformity section of the code include any reference to accessory uses?
No, it does not.
Okay, no further questions.
I don't have any questions either. Attorney Pettis-Mackle, do you have any other witnesses to present at this time?
No, sir.
All right, if the petitioner could present their case at this time, please.
Good morning. Thank you, hearing officer. I just want to confirm, have you received our evidence and the PowerPoint presentation?
I received an email. When you say evidence, is there something in addition to? Okay, I see it here now.
Yes.
So I have an
Yeah,
email with the PowerPoint, and then I also have evidence. Was the evidence submitted to the city attorney's office?
I have it. I don't want to risk turning on my computer because I'm logged on here. So I don't have a physical copy of it.
There's a physical copy for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have it, sir.
Okay, excellent. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor. We are here today representing 150 Davis and Emilio and Blanche Librero, the property owner and agent for the Libreros. We're here on appeal because we sought a formal decision for the non-conforming status for office use. And in response, we got a response that was much more narrow than was expected. The response was that it was a dance studio and did not look to any other types of studios within that definition, as well as it has an unusual, it doesn't look to office use in the way that it should. The staff determination went beyond the request and answered that the non-conforming use as an office is not approved. Today, you're going to hear from land use expert Susan Swift, who was a director of the city of Tampa from 1984 to 1993 and wrote the codes that we are discussing here today. So she is going to discuss the history and interpretation. You will also receive testimony from the Libreros, who are the longtime owners of the Librero studio and dance teaching on the property. They will speak to both the use and the intensity of use. We will then contrast it with the testimony of Mr. Brian Roney, who is an agent of the new property owner and employee of Proforma, as to the proposed use and decrease of intensity. The bottom line is we're only asking for the designation of uses that have been on the property for 40 years. To the extent there are any ambiguities as to the language of the code, I would point you to case law such as Rinker Materials versus City of North Miami and Town of Longboat Key versus Islandside Property Owners Coalition, which says that words used in a zoning ordinance should be given their broadest meaning when there is no definition or clear intent to the contrary, and the ordinance should be interpreted in favor of the property owner. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Susan Swift.
Thank you. These are the, an overview of the issues that we would like to prove from a zoning perspective. First, that it is a legal non-conforming use, and I'll dive into these more in subsequent slides. Importantly, chapter 43, when this was permitted, allowed for these three, among other things, these three uses, all of which apply to this use. And I think what you might, well, I'll touch on that later, that it is a unique use and the wording is very interesting, and it sounds like these uses were actually written for, you know, a particular location or certain locations. So they are very specific in how they're worded. And I think that's important in this case. Also prove that the use continued through all three zoning codes, and importantly that the pro formas uses are not a change of use. They're not more intense, they're actually less intense, and we'll get into that in a little more detail. And they are not expanding beyond the portions of the building that were, as the code says, manifestly arranged for such uses. So with that, the irony is this is probably the most sustainable building on Davis Islands, because it has covered parking on the first floor, and the second floor is the usable space. This is a site plan that the owners produced. Not sure, I don't think the city was able to find it or didn't research, but this is what we believe was permitted. It's not a stamped permitted site plan or building plan, but it looks exactly like the building does today. This is the usable floor area. We're talking about a building that is only a little over 4,000 gross square feet of air-conditioned space. It has 10 parking spaces under the building. It has 5 alley spaces in the back. Again, that is exactly like that 1984 plan showed it on the previous slide. Yes, there's an open area, but this plan shows not 2 spaces that the staff report cited, but it shows 5 office spaces, and 1 could be a 6th. And according to Mr. Librero, it was actually, there was a 6th office space, and it was converted over the years to something else. So there's a sound video room there now that's been in existence, and I'll get into more detail on that. And yes, the open space for this, there are offices, there have been offices. The open space was designed for the dance studio in mind, but the builder was initially building this for other offices, for spec. And yes, the Libreros were already in mind as their first tenant. So he built it specifically with these open areas so it could structurally handle that. And we'll show how versatile the building is, even with these large spaces on our other photos. The other important thing that I'll get to later is, as I said, the new use is actually going to trigger less parking, and it is less impactful. And it's not a change of use, and I'll get to that later. As you can see, there are multiple offices inside. Yes, there's a big space. In the lower left, you can see this sliding doors. There are 2 sets of these very expensive, very heavy sliding doors that can be recessed into the walls, and they can divide that larger space into smaller space, smaller, quote, studio or conference, whatever spaces. So it was constructed to be very versatile for multiple types of uses. There's a video in the sound room, there's offices. Look, all these spaces are exactly like they were on that original plan. These offices back here as well. So, and if you go in them, you can see they're still offices. I think the important thing from a zoning perspective is, what do they do? And even from what the Libreros did, there was multifaceted. It's just like if I were a doctor, I might do lab. Well, if I were a doctor, the zoning code doesn't say you have to be, a oncologist. It says a doctor. This code was super specific and said dance studios and these other kinds of studios. So that in and of itself is a little odd from the code. But then, even if I'm a doctor, I might do lab work. I might also have my accountant. I also might do x-rays. I might even sublease to people who do that. So the Libreros had, multiple businesses that were licensed here on SunBiz. We provided that documentation at this address over the course of the history of them using this building. And if you look at what they did in each of these, they did teach dance lessons. Obviously, that's their primary use, but they also had videos. They marketed the videos. They did the videos there. They had costumes and shoes. They had a travel business that also arranged things for customers to do dance holidays. And if you look at what Proforma does, they teach graphic design, coding. They teach how to use this graphic software. They're doing branding videos and instructional videos, doing design of marketing materials in general. And marketing these days aren't just paper brochures like we used to do in the olden days. They're online, as we all are, overcome with online things. So they also do advisory services and help small businesses do their marketing and branding, or how to do it. We jumped to the zoning conformance program. This is, again, a unique situation that this building was literally built. When it was built was in the middle of the zoning conformance program. So I can get into that under questions if you wish, but it's a complete coincidence that I was called to assist in this, because I oversaw this program when I was with the city. So when this building was built and approved, was under Chapter 43. It was R4 when this building was built, which allowed, then it went to Chapter 43A, and that's when it became RM24. So these uses, the lower left-hand corner, uses 10 and 11, were permitted, not accessory uses. They were permitted uses in R4. And the name of the R4 district was Multifamily Dwelling Institutional Professional District. So they were not accessory uses. These were all, again, permitted at the time. And all of these apply to what happened in that building and how it was used by the Libreros with their multiple businesses. And certainly the non-conforming use chapters have changed over time and gotten more restrictive. When they built it, this was the non-conforming use section. I think there are key things: provided no structural alterations, blah, 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 except those required by law. They've met every one of these iterations. This was the next code, the nonconformity section in the next code. They meet the specs in this, and we've cited that specifically. Number 2, must have legal non-conforming use under the old code, under chapter 43. They have not extended it through portions of a building that was manifestly arranged for the intended use or use of such uses. The existing use has kind of moved through the years, the decades, all being legal and matching what the code says. Do you want me to do this one?
You could, but
So I think that this is really a decrease in intensity. On the left side is the dance studio, what they've done, all the parts of their business. On the right, pro forma, what the parts of their business are. On a typical day, there were 72 people at the dance studio, again, maybe during the day or at night or both. There were events one night a week with 60 to 80 people attending. Pro forma is going to have a staff of 5 to 10 at most daily. Some are going to work from home. And then a coding training might have 12 people training 3 or 4 students. And yeah, I just have one more slide so then we can do that after. So there's less traffic, there's less, oops. Wait. My coup de grace slide. There's less traffic, there are less people, there are less customers. I think the important takeaways are the staff recommendation is overly narrow, only allowing a dance studio and only allowing office as accessory. I think looking at the words in chapter 43 of these particular 3 uses that were permitted, not accessory, office for administrative, business, or professional. And if you look at their definitions as well, a studio for professional work, it's pretty broad. I think that's what was done and is being done. Or teaching of fine arts, we already have beat that quite a bit. It is a non-conforming use in R4. I think I'm being a little redundant with some of these. Again, it's completely decreases the occupancy on the parking requirements. Actually, the parking requirement, if you figured it out, they actually would be required 1 less space than they already had, even by code. And it was never enlarged or intensified and or extended through buildings manifestly intended. You want me to do this? Thanks. That's all my. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. So there were 21 slides in the PowerPoint presented by the petitioner. Is there any objection to any of those slides being entered into evidence from the
Not from
city?
the city. No.
All right, we'll go ahead and enter each of those as their own exhibits, as petitioners exhibits 1 through 21. At this time, Attorney Graham, do you have any questions of Ms. Swift?
not right now, Your Honor.
Right. Attorney Pettis-Mackle, do you have any questions of Ms. Smith?
I
Swift?
do. Yes.
Thank Please proceed.
Ms. Swift, I just want to get some clarifications on some things that you testified to.
Sure.
Going to slide number 12, you mentioned the term, and you may have explained this, but I didn't hear you. The left side of the slide has 4 boxes with Libreros, school and dance club, dance times, etc. Then on the right side is the statement pro forma uses. Can you clarify what is that? Are you talking about future uses? Or are you talking about?
Yes, pro forma is their the use of the owner, the new owners of the building,
We'll have further testimony from Mr. Roney about this.
to explain exactly what they what they propose to do in this building.
Okay, that wasn't, I don't know that there were, that was really ironed out when you were testifying.
sorry.
Okay. So I want to go back then to the, and you previously testified as the previous zoning administrator in charge of the zoning code when the code was changing. You were very familiar with the code. You said that the important thing is what do they do there, correct? You testified to that?
Yeah.
So you testified that the primary use of the property from the Libreros was the dance lessons, correct? No, was that what you testified to?
I could have used that word.
Okay. And the information that you submitted to the city or the Libreros submitted to the city had all indications of the tax records and the information from, what was it? Let's see the exact,
Yeah.
the Polk directory information.
Yes.
all
the staff
had-
requirement. I'm sorry.
So going back to my question, the information that was submitted by the petitioner from the Polk directories beginning in year 1985 to 86, titled the document of the title, was titled 150 Libreros School and Dance Club, correct?
Yes.
And that was the consistent declaration on the Polk directory all the way until 2005 had it as a dance studio use, correct? From the Polk directory.
Yes.
And throughout that information, consistently beginning in 1985, there wasn't any information about an office from the Polk directory, correct?
No, there was not.
Okay. And when you were previously with the zoning, with the City of Tampa zoning code, through your analysis and working through the code, the code can allow various uses, correct? In a zoning classification.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
No, I want it to
Sorry,
be like
yes.
verbalized so that, because we're recording it.
We're recording.
So despite a zoning classification giving multiple uses, it's up to the applicant or the property owner to declare specifically what that use is, correct? What they're going to specifically use that property for, correct?
I don't think I understand the question.
So for example, if a zoning category allows for, let's use this one for specific, dance, office, etc., you declare what you're specifically using that building as in your site plan. You could declare what you're doing, correct?
Do I have to answer yes or no? I think it.
I'm asking you a yes or no question.
Yeah, yes, you ask for a use, but as I mentioned.
Well, that's my question first. So I'll ask a follow-up
Okay.
afterwards. Thank you so
Okay.
much. So when you, on the site plan that was submitted by the petitioner from your, let me see if it's in your. Actually, yes, it's slide 10, building site plans, slide 10. Slide 10, it says, it's called out on there, although it's like grainy, right? On this site plan, it has studios, and then it has on the perimeter offices on the bottom, I want to say at the edge or on the building, correct, right? But it has studios on there, correct?
It has studios and it also lists every space, including 5 or 6 offices.
Right, but it calls out studios too, right?
It's just a name.
No, but does it
Where-
call out studios?
Where? In the list of uses?
No, ma'am,
Yes.
on your slide 10, on the site plan,
Uh-huh.
site details, it says studios.
Can you point to where? Because
Slide 10 on the exhibit that you provided,
Across the plan.
correct?
Yes, it says studios.
Okay.
And it also says offices.
Okay. Now, also the petitioner, I apologize, submitted and it's on the city's slide. that was previously provided to the petitioner, there was a survey that was submitted by the petitioners. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Now, on that survey, it has on there, it calls out 2-story masonry building with open garage and Librero School and Dance, correct?
yes, that's the name on the sign. That was on their sign.
But it's also listed on the survey, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So nothing that was provided from the petitioner show exclusive use as an office, correct?
nothing shows exclusive use as an office,
Okay,
but lots of data that we provided shows offices that conflict with what your conclusions in the letter said
Okay,
in terms of offices.
that wasn't my question, but okay, you expanded upon it.
Yeah.
So, and you said that you're gonna have someone else testify about for the future use, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions for Ms. Swift.
Thank you, Attorney Graham. Do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, before I think Ms. Swift has one point she'd like to clarify for the record.
Yes, you had indicated that we didn't supply, or the information we supplied didn't show office. Nothing showed office exclusive. But however, earlier you said it didn't show anything but, or you made it sound like the only thing that it showed was dance studio. And first of all, we were required to submit the Polk directory. We were specifically asked to submit that, which we did. But if you look at all the other sources that Mr. Cotton mentioned earlier, that fed into Citus, the property appraiser doesn't call it dance studio. There's a plethora of uses: club, institutional. If you go to all these different, which we provided evidence for, if you go to lots of other government sources, they call it many things, including the property appraiser and the tax roll. The word club, the word institutional. I can't remember if the word school was used, but dance studio is not in every source. It happens to be in the Polk directory, but the property appraiser and tax collector and some of those other sources call it different things, not a dance studio. So I just want to clarify.
I have one further clarification question for Ms. Swift. Does the Polk directory necessarily reflect every use on a certain property at all times?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Pettis, well, did you have any follow-up based on that question and answer?
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Shaw. So if the Polk directory, if the use changes, isn't it up to the property owner to provide the information about what that use is, if it's changed?
I have never heard that, so I don't think I know the answer to that. And in my 40 years, I don't know anyone who has contacted Polk to do that. I believe Polk is a service that they provide, and it is considered a pretty reliable source just because they're the only ones who do it and who did it for, decades. So it is a go-to, but just like Citus isn't 100% right all the time, the Polk directory may or not be right. In this case, again, they're right on, yes, that business was there, but I can't tell you how they put their information together. I just know it's a common source that we all would use just because the history is usually pretty continuous.
But it's not like the city wouldn't supply information to be categorized in the Polk directory, correct?
In fact, I think that's.
I don't know how I don't know how they get their information.
Thank you.
Could you please call your next witness, Attorney Graham?
Yes, Mr. Emilio Librero, please.
Good morning, Mr. Master. I am Emilio Librero. take over here. I'm Blanche Librero, and we're the longtime owners of Librero School and Dance Club, which has been at 150 East Davis Boulevard from 1984 to this year. For over 4 decades, we had the privilege of both living and working on the island and being a part of the Davis Island community. Within our beautiful building, I still love it and miss it, and it's well known on the island. We had 5 offices we used for various related businesses, such as our videography department, marketing, dance shoes and dance attire, and an area where we arranged trips to well-known resorts and competitions. Since last year's application for formal decision, we sold the property, but we are here today to support the application. The dancing at 150 East Davis continues to this day with one of our instructors, Charles, who's taken.
Now, the proposed use you're considering today will lessen the impact on the area. To give us some context, we average about 72 people coming and going daily for lessons and group classes. And we have a party every Friday night with 60 to 80 people. We have private lessons going from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we have group classes on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings with about 40 students. And several times each year, we have special events with 80 to 100 people. So between the lessons, instructors, activities, there was always a lot of traffic coming in and out of the place. We worked hard through the years to maintain a good relationship with the community and to keep the impact as low as possible given our numbers. So the proposed use for performance office and graphic studio will have much less of an impact.
And I would like to add that when we first moved into the building, it was clear the intention was that it was an office building with 5 separate offices in the building. And in the 40 years we were there, the only change ever made was we added 1 electrical plug in the wall.
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, Attorney Pettis-Mackle, do you have any questions for Mr. Librero? We'll start with Mr. Librero first.
No, I don't have any questions for him.
And do you have any questions for Mrs. Librero?
I don't.
All right, Attorney Graham, who is your witness?
My next witness is Mr. Brian Roney,
And could you spell Mr. Roney's last name, please?
Roney.
Thank you.
Is it traditional BRIAN?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try not to sound like a robot. All right. My name is Brian Roney. I'm the Senior Director of Product Design at Proforma. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, 150 East Davis. And Derek, can you hear me as well? Just want to make sure you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you very clearly. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So Proforma is a premier graphic design, multimedia, and marketing company. We support small businesses across the US and Canada. We've actually been on Davis Island for over 14 years, and we've actually had a commercial presence on Davis Island, especially in the downtown district, for over a decade. The vision for the 150 East Davis buildings provide a space for our performance creative team, managers, our videography team that predominantly do multimedia, editing, and production. We also want to provide a space for our coding training, where we typically partner with people from the community with a special emphasis on veterans and military personnel. It's something that's been a really, really awesome program collaboration for us. Like many companies post-COVID, our workforce vast majority is remote. That's what they prefer. We're not Google, Facebook. We can't require people to come back in and expect them to continue working with us. So we do have some people that like hybrid approach though, so they don't like to be just fully remote. So it's voluntary basis, so they can come into the office or stay at home. 150 East Davis would be a home base where we typically would probably see 5 to 7 people regularly there, with occasionally larger team meetings for maybe about 10 people or so. We would also hope to hold the coding training sessions that would generally include 1 instructor and about 3 to 4 students at that time. And our impact will be significantly less than the dance studio. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Did you have any questions, Attorney Graham?
No, Your Honor.
Attorney Pettis-Mackle, any questions? for Mr.
No.
Rooney?
No.
All right, thank you. Do you have another witness, Attorney Graham?
Those are all the witnesses we have. I do have a package of evidence which we've referenced throughout, but I want to make sure that I'm able to put it into the testimony right now, and I had submitted it. It's this document dated June 16th. It includes 10 exhibits. Exhibit A is the letter of authorization and ownership for 150 East Davis Island, DM. Exhibit B and C are the affidavits to authorize the agent. D is the formal decision request. E is the petition for review dated March 3rd, 2025. Exhibit F is Susan Swift's resume. Exhibit G includes letters of support from 3 members of the Davis Islands community, which if Mr. Roney may testify to. Exhibit I was the PowerPoint, and Exhibit J, which I've included, are relevant City of Tampa LDC sections.
Is there any objection from the city concerning the admissibility of the referenced exhibits?
No.
Okay, what we'll do, we already have the petitioner's PowerPoint, which consisted of 21 slides, and those are petitioner's exhibit 1 through 21, and I will just add to those exhibits the information you just presented, with exception of the PowerPoint, which is already included.
And Your Honor, one last thing is that, and I realized that the cover letter of the document that I sent actually includes a legal memorandum. So I'd like to ensure that that is actually included as an exhibit as well. I guess it would be Exhibit F, Exhibit K, even though it's the first document of this package.
I don't know that I have that.
Oh, it's the first page.
My first page is the letter to me.
Oh, that's strange.
There are 2 attachments to the email. This is the June 16th letter to Special Master City Hall. Is that what you're referencing?
I'm just,
I thought you got that. I do apologize.
do you want this one back, or I think I wrote
Oh,
it.
that's fine. You can keep it.
Okay, just to clarify, so I apologize. You want this letter, this memorandum to be labeled as exhibit?
K.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you say this, is that the first attachment to the email that was sent at 10:33?
I will confirm that. Hold on one. Yes. Yes, that's right, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. I'll designate them and set forth in the recommended order, or if I ask for proposed orders, we can outline those so it's clear. And just to clarify, there's no objection from the city on any of those documents?
No objection.
All right, at this point, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this matter?
I don't think so. No one's here from the public.
Okay,
It's the 3 letters of support, though, which have been entered into evidence.
all right, thank you. Are there any additional comments from the City of Tampa or the City of Tampa staff?
Yes, sir. Eric Cotton, for the record. I just want to point out section 27-292, which is intent concerning nonconformities generally. And just to paraphrase what it says in there, the intent is for nonconformities to cease use. As the code has changed over the years. It does allow for nonconformities to continue as long as they're shown that they were legally established and they continue to be that way since they were established. And the second part of that is that it's not the intent of Chapter 27 that a nonconformity be used to expand upon the use of the property and then add on prohibited uses or structures. In this case, it would be uses or enlarging the use except specifically allowed by the code.
Okay, understood. All right, does the city have a closing argument?
Just brief, hearing officer, thank you, Mr. Strauss. So as, the city provided you the code section specifically for the standard of review in 2761 subsection J, this is the de novo review hearing. You heard from city staff, specifically Mr. Cotton, that the city reviewed the information that was provided by the petitioner. And along with reviewing the City of Tampa code, along with the CITUS program. And based upon their review of the information that was submitted by the petitioner, the request for the office, the determination of that office as a non-conformity was disapproved, was not approved. I apologize. What staff did confirm through the letter and through additional clarification in their testimony is that the approved use was a dance studio, and which allowed for office use as an accessory use, recognizing that there were some offices in that building. However, the primary request from the petitioner was whether or not office is a non-conforming use. And based upon everything that was submitted in the record, city staff did not find, based upon the code section, that was a legal non-conforming use. Based upon the information that was submitted and the testimony here from all parties, including Ms. Swift, who was at the time as she testified a part of this zoning reclassification, I want to call it, that process of going from 2743 to 2743A, she recognized that dance studio was a use that was allowed for that property in the R4 zoning classification, and that was the primary use of that property. She corroborates what the city staff has also determined is that there were offices there, but the dance studio was the primary use of the property, including based upon the evidence that was submitted by the petitioners. Based upon that, Mr. Stroff, the city is asking for you to make a finding to affirm that the office use is not approved as a legal non-conforming use. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Are there any closing arguments from Attorney Graham?
Yes, Mr. Strauss. Good morning. So I'd like to make several points. First, the distinction between the accessory use and primary use is completely irrelevant in the non-conforming analysis. And the appropriate question is whether portions of the building are manifestly arranged or intended for such use, which is pursuant to section 27-2971A. So to make it very clear, the city has gone to great lengths they've conceded that there is a history of office use. Now, there is a difference of opinion as to how many offices had been used. I would say that you have heard testimony from Ms. Swift and the Libreros today that at very least 5 of those offices, 5 of the rooms were used for offices throughout the life of this property without any gap. Now, if you look at section 27-297, non-conforming uses of major structures or structures and premises in combination, it says that non-conforming use of a structure with a value higher than respective values in section 27-296 shall be considered a major structure and may be continued exactly as such uses existed at the time that its non-conforming status was established, provided that a non-conforming use may not be enlarged, extended, intensified, or changed, except for a change to a use permitted in the district in which the property is located, except as provided below, And then it says A non-conforming use may be extended through portions of a building manifestly arranged or intended for such use. You have heard testimony today, and there is evidence in the record that under the zoning code for R4, the use for office was allowed, as well as the variety of studio uses. Now, you have a site plan that shows that there were numerous offices, and that there are numerous offices as well as studios. Now, what's interesting is take a close look at this. It says that a non-conforming use may be extended through portions of a building manifestly arranged or intended for such use. You also heard testimony from Mr. and Mrs. Librero that when this building was originally designed, it was intended as an office building, and there is information from the record that it was for commercial uses. And so as far as offices, the evidence shows that it had been manifestly arranged or intended for such use. To back into a distinction between accessory use and primary use belies the plain language of the code. There is nothing in the non-conforming use section of this code that makes that distinction. And actually it shows that it's different, and that it shows that actually if you have this existing use, it can be extended in as much that it is extended into portions of the building manifestly arranged or intended for such use. Now, to just look at the definition of change of use, I want to make it clear that the change of use, which is under section 27-41, shows that a change of use is a modification to the use, most intense legally established use in the public record of a structure or property to accommodate a more intensive use, which adds floor area, increases density, or increases occupancy loads, and requires more total parking spaces than the previous use of the property or structure. There is no such change of use that's happening here. And as you've heard from the testimony of Mr. Roney, the intended use of the proposal for the new property owner actually will decrease the use. It will be less intensive. It will have one less parking space per the testimony of Ms. Swift. It does nothing to add floor area. And as Mrs. Librero testified, in 40 years, the only change was a plug had been added. So we put to you that this distinction of accessory use for office is a false distinction that it doesn't live in the code, unfortunately. And so we would say to you that based on this part of the section of the code, to 27291B, that you find that an office is a non-conforming use. Now, the other part of the decision that we find extremely important for clarification, and this is because when one comes to the city for this type of formal decision and you get the response back, you can't come back for, I believe, a year to get further clarification or to get a new the description of it. And what's happened is that there has been an overly narrow limitation in the decision that says that it's just a dance studio, which conflicts with the plain language of the code and Florida law. As Ms. Swift testified, the code that was in place when this use started in 1985 was R4, which explicitly permitted numerous uses. Now, we already talked about the office use, so we're not going to get into that. But under section 43-20, parens 11, it says studio for professional work or teaching of any form of fine arts, photography, music, drama, dance, but not including a commercial gymnasium. Because zoning regulations are in derogation of private property rights of ownership, you have to look at the words in a zoning ordinance to give them their broadest meaning, and it should be interpreted in favor of the property owner. Here, it has been falsely limited to this use that is only for a dance studio, where if you look in the code, it clearly is studio for this larger umbrella of uses. And so we would say that to say dance studio artificially narrows the use, and it should include everything within subsection 11. By way of comparison, as Ms. Swift said earlier, a doctor's office could be a pediatrician, cardiologist, dermatologist, etc., and it wouldn't be limited to any one subspecialty. And such interpretation would render the code absurd. And I have cited a case, Palm Beach County Canvassing Board v. Harris, that shows that as well. So based on this, we are respectfully requesting, Special Master, that you make the following findings. The first is that there is a finding of non-conforming use on the property for uses defined in section 43-20A10 and 11 of 1985, with the acknowledgement and condition that such uses may continue on the property as long as they are the same or less intense, with the same or less occupancy and the same or fewer parking required than before. And no change, enlargement, or intensification of use may occur. And then secondly, the finding that the distinction between accessory use and primary use is irrelevant in this analysis, and that this Special Master should look to section 27-2971A, a non-conforming use may be extended through portions of a building manifestly arranged or intended for such use. The office use was previously at very least 5 offices throughout the property. The site plan and testimony show that all heated areas of the building are manifestly arranged for such uses within sections 43-20A10 and 11 of 1985. So with that, I'm here if we have any further questions. And I would just say that, again, I would point to the Rinker case, which I had previously cited, which says, in the event there is ambiguity, it should be construed in favor of the property owner, since it is a derogation of their private property rights of ownership. Thank you.
Mr. Strauss,
Thank you for your time.
I do apologize. I did forget to include something. I had a case law that I had in reference to some questions that that were on the record, and I'm handing a copy to Ms. Graham. And I'll also email a copy to you, but for the record, it's Taylor v. Department of Professional Regulations. The case site is 520 Southern 2nd 557. I will email that to you. This case law is in reference to the 2 letters that were testified to that are in the record, that were correcting some scrivener errors, and that it's not improper for city staff to revise the letter to address some scrivener errors.
Okay, thank you. You're not required to, but if you'd like to submit a proposed recommended order, you're welcome to do so, and do so before June 26th. I will issue my recommended order regardless of whether you submit proposed recommended orders or not on or before July 3rd. The code requires I issue it within 15 working days of the close of the hearing. So if you're inclined to do that, please email it to me directly and copy opposing counsel. If you're not inclined to do that, then if June 27th rolls around and I don't get it, then you obviously elected not to do that. And you'll have my decision on or before July 3rd. Is there anything else anyone would like to address at this time?
Your Honor, I would just like to say again for the record that, notwithstanding whether there was such a letter that corrected the scrivener errors, my client had never received them. And so this is something where if we had a chance to review it, that's something that we would hope would be corrected and wouldn't be a big deal. But just for the record, we do think there's somewhat of a due process issue in that it wasn't actually served directly on my client, even if it was in a cellar.
That document was referenced previously. It was part of the submittal that Attorney Pettis-Mackle submitted to both of us. Are you objecting to the inclusion of that, or are you just pointing out that your client's position is you did not receive it?
Right. My client's position is that we did not receive it. We don't object to it. We just wanted to make it very clear that that had not been received.
Okay, understood. Anything else anyone else would like to address before we adjourn?
Not from the city.
There's
Oh, no, Your Honor, my client wanted to just speak to the fact that they are a longtime member of Davis Island, but it's not really relevant, so it's just kind of a closing thing.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate your professionalism in the presentation.
Thank
And,
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You'll have a decision by July 3rd.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.